Okay, as Celeste said, my latest book was this book on the unknown Van Gogh, Vincent van Gogh's youngest brother, Cornelis. He was about 14 years younger. And how this book came about, I was doing a book on the Hollander volunteers in the Anglo-Boer War. And it concerned the ambulances, and then of course the guys on commando, and then what the teachers and some of the nurses did in the prisoner of war camps in St. Helena and Bermuda and India and those places. And I came across the name of Cornelis van Gogh. And I found it strange that there was very little information on this man. There's no biography, nothing, and very little information. The basic facts were that he'd come out in South Africa, and he worked for the Netherlands South African Railways, and then he joined the Boers, and he committed suicide in a British hospital, they said, in Brantford, which was around April 1900. And I started reading up on Cornelis, and I just decided, well, I realized that if I want to know more about him, or enough about him, I'll probably have to go to his roots, which is northern Brabant. And I was fortunate to get a grant from the Nederlands Zuid-Afrikaanse Vereniging in Amsterdam. Housed based in South Africa, which is a very nice library, by the way. And anyway, I went over to Brabant, and I spent time in the four towns where the Van Gogh family, where they lived. The father was a minister, Protestant minister, and his brothers were quite wealthy. Two of them were art dealers, and the other one was a book dealer in Amsterdam. So he passed on a lot of books and newspapers to the family. So Vincent and Theo and Cor and the three sisters, they all grew up with a lot of literature. They were well read, and in terms of history and English literature, whatever. But anyway, Dominee van Gogh, by the way, they called him the Mooi Dominee, because he was quite a handsome man, and his wife was very. She was also very strict, but she was a bit depressed in a way. It was something that ran in the family, but it's something that I will come to in a while. But the nice thing about the research was going to these towns in Brabant. They were all six children were born in Zundert. The house where they were born, which was a parsonage, of course, then that was demolished in 1903, unfortunately, and it's been converted into the Van Gogh Museum in Zundert. And from as dominees go, they get a call to a different town, and then the wife decides, it's okay, they can go. But it was the same with Dominee van Gogh. And so the next town they went to was Helford, which was just sort of east of Zundert, but not that far. And from there they went to Etten-Leur. Now Etten-Leur is important in the sense of that was where Vincent became fairly productive in terms of sketching and painting. In the meantime, he's been wandering around, but Vincent is another story. And then eventually they settled in Yemen. The parsonage is still there. There's a very nice museum, and there's a historical route where you can, I think there's about 21 points where you can walk along this route along the river where the family, where they used to go for their afternoon walks. And in one of these spots is like an old warehouse where Vincent used to, for a while, when he stored his paintings. And then also the old Roostonk windmill. It's still there. There used to be a fair number of windmills, but most of them have disappeared, but this Roostonk is still there. It was sketched by something like 7 times by Vincent, so it's quite a landmark there. I also had the privilege to go to the Van Gogh Museum. A lot of you might have been there. And a lot of the research was based on the correspondence, the Van Gogh family letters. And there are over 800 of these letters, mostly from Vincent, because what happened was that Vincent and Theo, they were the main correspondents. And Vincent would write to Theo, and Theo would keep all the letters, and Theo would write to Vincent, but Vincent would just dump it, get lost somewhere. So there's not that many from Theo, but most of the letters from Vincent were preserved, and there excuse me, a certain number from Cor, the young brother, which he wrote from Lincoln, where he worked in a steam machine factory. He was very good with his hands, and he was as opposed to Vincent and Theo. He was taller, he was stronger, and he was a more practical type of guy. But he worked in this for 2 years in this factory in Lincoln, which was quite a big industrial city at the time. I'm talking about the 1880s. And then Cor came out from Lincoln to South Africa. It's not, I'm not sure whether he responded to an ad in the Dutch papers, because they used to cover South African affairs quite well. But anyway, he got a job as a machinist with the cornucopia gold mine on the Witwatersrand. And I mean, this is when gold mining just taken off. But they came to a stage where the ordinary digger, the guy with a pick and shovel, where he became obsolete. The industry became a lot more sophisticated, mechanized, that kind of thing. They were looking for people like with Cor van Gogh's background, who was good with his hands, who could work with machines. And what I have to mention is that in the special collections, I found quite a bit on the gold mines, on the cornucopia gold mine specifically, which I wouldn't have found in the archives. And in the prospectus, it could tell you everything about the machines, about the batteries, the machines that operated or that drove the mining. And so one knew exactly, from that you knew exactly what kind of machines Paul worked on. That was his main job. He worked on those machines like 24 hours. He had to be on standby all the time because his machines broke down. So that was something. So there the books in your special collections was quite useful. Apart from the books, but then from there he went over to the Netherlands South African Railways Company, the Nederlandse Suid-Afrikaanse Spoorwegmaatskappy, which suited his background even better because of the steam locomotives and things like that. He worked on the assembly line for these steam locomotives, and he spent the rest of his career there. He started off at what is now the old, now the present Germiston, at that workshop there. And in the meantime, they started building the big workshops in Pretoria, and that was finished in about 1894. And then Paul moved over to Pretoria. And then, like I said, he spent the rest of his career there. Except for 1897, he went over during his holiday. He went back to his family in Holland and visited Theo in Paris. Theo lived there for most of his life, or his adult life, with his wife and son. And this son, Willem, was the guy who actually started this, took over this collection from his mother, from Theo's wife after Theo's death, and also started the Vincent van Gogh Museum, with the foundation and then the actual museum. Around about somewhere in the 60s he started, then later the museum was built. But anyway, the story goes that he was, at that stage, he was always looking for a wife. It was not common for a Dutchman to go back to his mother country and look for a wife there and then bring her back here, which is quite something from a woman's perspective, to just come over from Holland not knowing what to expect. But anyway, he came back empty-handed. But anyway, he hadn't been back for long. It was the following year, in about 1898. He married a lady called Anna Fuchs, and she was German. Her father was a gardener in Pretoria. He started off in Bloemfontein, but the whole family came out from Germany and went to Bloemfontein first, and then moved over to Pretoria and settled quite near where President Paul Kruger, where he lived. But anyway, the two of them got married, and the marriage only lasted 8 months because both of them were quite difficult people, like all the Van Goghs, but maybe the exception of Theo. He was a stable one. Vincent was a difficult guy. The mother was a difficult guy. Paul was a difficult person. So there was always this potential for friction between the husband and wife. And after 8 months, she took all the furniture and she moved in with her parents in Pretoria. And the shame of poor Corey, the year before he got a loan from his brother-in-law in Holland to set up a house, to buy furniture and all that stuff. But the interesting thing there is that there was no information on Anna Fuchs on Gogh's wife, except that she came from Germany. And just by chance on the internet, I came across a guy called Duncan McGregor, who lives as an engineer in Sussex. And he wrote a letter to someone that I found, like I say, on the internet, where he's mentioning his grandmother. Now, his grandmother happened to be the sister of Anna Fuchs, which was quite a coincidence. So I managed to get hold of Duncan, and so we corresponded, and obviously he was more interested in what happened to his grandmother, but then he could tell me some things about Anna. He said, he told me that according to some of the family, they could recall that Auntie Anna was a real terror. Those were her words. And this one lady, she still lives in Johannesburg now, but the one who remembered Auntie Anna. Anyway, he was when the Anglo-Boer War broke out, the railway company, they couldn't. There were certain guys like Gogh, who had sort of high-standing or important jobs, and they couldn't just release them to go on commando with the Boers, because the whole war, Republican war effort was based on the railways, on getting troops to Natal quickly, horses to Natal quickly, that commandos, that kind of thing. So he was needed in the workshops, and he worked there till about March. Like in February, you had Paardeberg, when Cronje surrendered with 4,000 men, and the tide really turned against the Boers at that stage. And then the retreat started Bloemfontein fell, the retreat started to Johannesburg and Pretoria. But it was around about March that Cor van Gogh joined the Foreign Legion, which was a commando or a corps of foreigners consisting of Russians and Germans and obviously a lot of Dutch. But Cor was part of this legion, but he fought under Commandant J.S.F. Bluchner, who was just a plain Boer guy, very wonderful shot, and very experienced. But anyway, he was then Cor was part of this retreat firstly from Bloemfontein, then they went through Brandfort, that Kroonstad, and then across the Waal River, and eventually, but he only got as far as Brandfort. And the story goes that he was captured, taken prisoner by the British, and then he died in a hospital I said in a British military hospital. Committed suicide. Now the suicide part is quite correct. He shot himself in the hospital during some fever attacks, and that is recorded officially by the Red Cross organization. But the thing about the British hospital bothered me, because he died on the 12th of April. And Brandfort was only occupied by the British at the end of May. So it didn't make sense to me somehow. And I started talking to Dr. Arnold van Dijk, I think you might know him. He's with the Anglo-Boer War Museum in Bloemfontein. He's quite an expert, and quite an expert on that retreat. And I spoke to him about this whole thing, and he said, but no, it doesn't make sense to him either. He said, like he called it a Volar story. So I went into this aspect of his death. And it turned out that at the time, when he committed suicide, it was a very primitive little hospital in Brantford, run by Russian, German, or Russian Dutch doctors under the banner of the International Red Cross. And in fact, one of the officers who arrived at the end of May when they occupied, the British occupied Brantford, still wrote in his reminiscences that the Red Cross flag was still waving on top of the hospital. So until the British came there, it was still Red Cross hospital. So it just didn't make sense that he would be taken to hospital in Brantford by British soldiers. They wouldn't be able to just ride in there with a sick man. But anyway, so that was how our call came to his end. Afterwards, his wife still had a dispute about his estate with his mother. He left because he wasn't. After they never actually divorced. They just separated, he and his wife. And after that, obviously, he didn't really want to have much to do with her, and he left everything in his will to his mother, who then lived in Breda, in Hollandstorp, with the older sister. And then for 4 years they had a dispute about who gets what. Not that it was much, I think it was just like a few pounds that they were having a fight about, and maybe a few pieces of furniture. But anyway, people always ask, are there any paintings, any works of art that came of Vincent that came out to South Africa? And I tried to read up on that as much as possible, but I couldn't find any evidence. Cole did mention in letters to his mother and his sister that he brought out what he called platen, which is just like color prints that he bought from Paris, from the World Exhibition there. And then basically from magazines, and in his room in Johannesburg, and he just stuck it on the wall like we did with the Huisgenootse sport album. We used to stick these sports heroes on the wall, and it was the same thing, but they were never like original paintings that he ever received from Vincent, and that he brought out here. And someone in Stellenbosch asked me a while ago, is it possible that he would have forged Vincent's signature? And I said, no, I don't think he would have bothered, because when Cole died in 1900, people didn't really know about Vincent. He wasn't famous. So, I mean, not even in Europe. So, in South Africa, we know about Vincent there. So, and then, of course, he was never in dire straits, Cole van Gogh. He had a good job with the railways. He didn't have to forge anybody's signature to try to make some money. So that settled that. And just one more aspect that I can mention is I think it was this condition, if I can call it that. I'm not a medical expert. I read one or two medical journals on the subject about this condition that ran in the family. It comes from either the mother or the father, but it's in the genes, and it came from the mother's side. And like I said, she was very temperamental. One day she would be very loving towards Vincent, according to the biographers. And the next day she couldn't stand him. So it must have been very confusing for him when he was a kid. Vincent must have inherited this as well. And then Gogh, also he had these mood changes and got depressed. And the one sister, Volmin, she actually spent 41 years or something in an institution. She wouldn't talk. They had to feed her artificially. So they call it acute intermittent porphyria. This is what, I know porphyria, it can, people think of it as a skin disease, but it's just one of the symptoms from what I understand. But it's this porphyria is characterized by, like I said, by depression and fever attacks and hallucination and all kinds of things. And if Gogh got ill while on commando, the British knew a little about mental conditions and things like that, but the only explanation the Boers had was bomskop. And there was something wrong with the guy, they would say, oh, it's bomskop. And it was the same probably with Gogh. So they wouldn't have paid much attention to his fever attacks in hospital. But anyway, it was bad enough for him to shoot himself, same as his brother Vincent. And Theo was the stable one. He was basically the breadwinner in the family, because he paid money for Gogh to go to school. He paid to keep Vincent alive, and then also giving money to his mother and his father, because Dominee van Gogh didn't earn that much. But anyway, Theo died, I think it was within 6 months after Vincent's suicide. But he also he suffered from side effects of syphilis, and it affected his mind. And he also died in Sandra Hospital in Holland. And then after that, you had Gogh committing suicide. So this poor mother, she had these 3 sons, and not one of them grew older than 37 years. Gogh was only 32, Vincent was 37 or something, and Theo was something in between. So it was quite a tragic family, if one could call that. But very, like I said in the beginning, very interesting to visit northern Brabant. It's very close to where they lived. It's very close to the Belgian border, and in fact, some of the members of the congregation lived on the Belgian side of the border, came to the Protestant church. At the Zuid-Afrika Huis in Amsterdam, I don't know if you read about it. It was sort of touch and go, but it was about to be sold, and then, from what I understand, Nationale Pers saved it. and it's going ahead again. And that whole collection would have gone to one of the universities in Amsterdam, and all the material they have, it's all on South Africa. All the books they've got lots and lots and lots of books, and pamphlets and manuscripts and whatever. But it's all on South African history. A little bit on Holland, but it's basically a library of information on South Africa. And what they do have there, and what was for my purposes was quite useful. They have the Nederlandse Suid-Afrikaanse Spoorwegmaatskappy. They have their archives. It's housed there, and until I've done this book, all we knew about Cor van Gogh was that he worked for the Spoorwegmaatskappy. Didn't know when he started, nothing like that. But fortunately, at the South Africa House, they have these personnel registered from different divisions, and they have all these entries there. And so I could find the exact date when he was appointed. He was appointed as what they call a voorman at the shop, the railway shop, assembly shop. And it gives you the salary, what salary earned, and everything you needed to know about all the basics of his career. So that was quite useful, going to South Africa. The other information which was very vague was exactly when did Cor come out to South Africa. And Celeste and I were talking about it a little while ago, about paging through newspapers. It's a very boring job, but it's got to be done. And in the South African Library, in the Cape Times, they have these ships' passenger lists. So I went through, it was about a whole year that I had to page through all these old Cape Times. And I mean, like one month is about this thick, and you have to page through the whole lot and look at the passenger ships list, and it's like really tiny. And I'm not exaggerating, you have to look with a magnifying glass to pick up those names, because I just wanted to get it in there. And then eventually I found his name in the passenger list, bound for Cape Town. And so I knew exactly when he set foot in Cape Town. And then from one of the letters that he wrote, one could more or less within a week or two establish more when he arrived in Johannesburg, because he must have gone from Cape Town by train up to the railway. Only went as far as Kimberley, and from there they took the stagecoach to Johannesburg and to the Witwatersrand. So at least I could establish then when he got up there and when he started his job. But anyway, that is Cornelis van Gogh. Are there any questions about him, or about the family, or research?
So did he never painted anything or draw anything? So
in the correspondence collection, there's a little map of Etten, the town where they lived. And what happened was that he had rabbits, and when he was and he and Vincent would, they didn't have a close relationship at all, even late in their life. They didn't even correspond. They would write letters to Theo, but there was really nothing between Vincent and Cor. And they would go out into the field, to look for something green to feed the rabbits. And on this specific day, they were sitting there in the wood, and Vincent said, but let's draw a map of this area. And it's quite interesting. It indicated the houses. Mr. So and so lived here, and here's the church, and here's this place, and Mr. So and so lived here. It's got the it shows you the woods and everything. So it's like it's quite historic, really, if you think about it. From a local history point of view. But that was the only art, if you could call it that Cor was ever involved in. And so in a way, Cor was maybe his first, Vincent's first art student, if you could call it that. But he never painted himself. I don't know about Theo. I don't know of anything I'm not aware of anything that Theo did.
Unfortunately, I haven't read the book yet. Did you find his a cemetery where he is buried?
Sorry, I beg your pardon?
Did you find his grave somewhere in
Yeah, that
South Africa?
is the other interesting thing. In those times during the Boer War, these foreigners came out to South Africa expecting to be welcomed, with open arms by the Boers. But it was not the case. In fact, the Boers, they looked down upon them, and they called the Dutchman, they called him the Kaaskopper. Sort of very derogatory, and they found them, or they regarded them more of a nuisance, than an asset to the commanders, because the majority of these Hollanders, and maybe some of the Germans, Scandinavians, they couldn't shoot, they couldn't ride a horse, so how can you go on commando? So they had to teach them all these things, and they kept falling off the horse and that kind of thing. So the Boers lost patience, and you would get situations where there were casualties, after some skirmish. There would be 13 guys lying dead there, and then one of the Boers would say, "But there are so many dead," and one would say, "But no, but there's two more," and he would say, "No, but they just Hollanders," So it didn't really matter. I'm not exaggerating. I mean, it's recorded. We recorded, and so when Cor died, and maybe the fact that he shot himself, it was probably unacceptable to the Boers as well. But apart from that, he was just another Dutchman, and until today they don't know where they just know that he buried in Brandfort at the civilian graveyard. There's another graveyard for the concentration camp where the women and children were buried, but he was buried at the ordinary, call it the Dorpsbegrafplaats. But the register for the graveyard got lost, according to the town clerk, which we tried to establish later. But at least they narrowed it down to 3 possible graves, because other people came and they, some way identified, but my uncle was buried there, or that kind of thing. So they narrowed it down to 3 possible graves, but they'll have to do DNA to determine. And why they haven't done it yet, I don't know. you know, I would have thought it's quite important link with the Netherlands, you know, with Vincent van Gogh, with the art world. So maybe someone will the next project for you guys, you know. But anyway, so it's not. They don't know for certain. There's no gravestone or anything.
Any more questions? Enige aan de vraag?
When you were overseas, did you find any living families still? Van Goghs?
Not in South Africa. It's just the from the Fook side, like from Anna's side. They never had children. She and Paul, but she married again and an English guy called Alexander Mill, and they had 2 children from what I know, for sure. But it's only from that side. But there are, you know, a few Van Goghs in the. I saw some garage owner somewhere in the Free State called Van Gogh from the 50s, you know, some entry in the 50s, but it's a very scarce surname. But no descendants directly from Gogh.
Chris, tell us a little bit more about your latest research, your next upcoming book. Maybe a little bit background.
Yeah, I'm thinking of doing a book on one of the Cape rebels, Commandant Hans Lotte, who operated in the Cape Midlands, and he was, apart from Gideon's Skeepers, Gideon Skeepers' death, you know, Commandant Lotte was he was shot in Middelburg, sentenced to death, and he was sentenced to be hanged first, but they took him out to Middelburg and he was shot just outside town. There's still a little monument there. And that caused quite an outcry at the time. And soon after him it was Gideon Skeepers. But those two were the two most serious cases. Even the loyalists didn't like it at all. There's a lot of drama around this man. He was sort of like a special agent almost. Sent out by he lived in Middelburg, born in Somerset East, on a farm there. But he ended up with General Herzog soon after the outbreak of the war. And not with Kritzinger's commander that invaded the Cape Colony, came with Herzog. And he was, it's not things that you would find really in archives, but you find it, funnily enough, in books. We were talking about that as well. In one or two books that, and there was a special plan by de Wet, General de Wet and Herzog, to invade the Cape Colony. Now de Wet only got as far as the Orange River. You know, it was flattened and they had to go back, but the idea was to invade the Cape Colony and cause this whole rebellion. But then de Wet was also on his way to the, as far as the Midlands, and the Eastern Cape really. And he was one of the guys who was sent, Commandant Lotte, to come and stir up this rebellion. And he actually, went as far as the Free State to get to round up horses, bring it to the Cape Colony, and all in readiness for the Wet's invasion and Herzog's invasion. So there's a lot around that, but then he became commandant of his own commando in that Sneeuwberg the tankies back there in New Bethesda in that area. And he operated there, and it was the British, had a really difficult time to catch him, and then this Colonel Scoville, who was quite a tough nut himself, he managed to round up the whole commando one rainy night up there near Petersburg, which is just east of, in the mountains east of Grafrinet. And it was quite a bloody fight, they were hiding in a sheep car, stone walls and all that, and they were cornered there, and the Cape Mounted Rifles and the 9th Lancers, they were all around them, so there was nowhere to go, and they were just exposed to this rifle fire from all around, and it was a real bloody fight, and you could see that pictures taken of him 3 days later at the Grafrinet jail. You can see still, these bloody spots on his shirt, he was wounded in the head, So there's a lot of drama around this guy, and action, and a lot of interesting stuff. So that's what I'm working on at the moment, to get it published. But again, World War, until 5-6 years ago, I was just writing rugby, because I was involved. And then I did a book called Borussia, and from there again on it was just unbelievable.
Okay, so on that point, thank you, Brian Donkey. I think it's been very insightful. And as you can see, Chris is very modest because I asked him to bring a few copies of his latest book and he only walked free. So if you'd like to be interested, well, I see this all the time of it, so maybe he's not that modest.
That one my personal copy.
Personal copy, so if you're interested, as jy sou belangstel, jy is 'n paar kopieë en ek sal dit seker met graagte vir u teken. Baie dankie. Ek het die voorreg gehad, I've had fortunate of meeting Chris earlier in action in the Afrikaner section. And he's a very committed, very serious researcher. So, just give him an average, if it's a good day, how many pages do you write? If it's a good day.
How many pages do I write?
Yeah.
We look at it in terms of words.
Yes. But where is
But it varies, quite a lot. I mean, some days nothing, and other days 3,000.
So you see it confirmed, being a writer is
But,
very hard work.
And how long did it take you to produce a book like this last one? How many hours of research? 2 years? A year?
Well, writing, once you've done the research, and you've got everything together, you can do it in much less than a year. If you really apply your mind to it, and you've got all the information. You can do it in 2 months if you have to. Usually the publishers will push it, because they have a schedule. It's going to be edited, from such and such a date, and then we're looking at the proofs and.
And is there a big enough market for you to make it worthwhile commercially?
You'll never get rich from writing books, unless you're Dion Meyer, you look at some of those fiction books. But all overseas, there's a much bigger market. That guy who wrote the book on Stalingrad, he and his publisher, they were just looking at 1,000 copies, and they told themselves that they would be happy if they could just sell 1,000, and in the end they sold more than 1 million. So that guy is but the guys like Dion Meyer, it's been translated into I think 21 languages. So that's a different story. But the interesting thing is, you look at the publisher's catalogue, you'll find a lot more non-fiction books than fiction. Because everybody thinks, wants to be a writer, thinks of, I want to be the next J.M. Coetzee, or, you don't have to look at fiction. But the South African market is not a lucrative market. You'll make a bit, make it worthwhile, but you never get rich from writing non-fiction books. Unless they turn it into a movie, then, like with Farias was a good example. And Albert Blake was he was quite shrewd there. He retained the film rights, without knowing that it was, just taking the chance, just in case it was going to be filmed. And so that's where he made, a bit of money.
Chris, baie dankie. Ons sê vir u baie dankie. Thank you, and just a little something to keep you.
Baie dankie. Die regte geskenk vir hierdie weer. So, baie dankie.